Hello, everybody. Tina Hogan Grant here with my usual Cuppa A Natter that I do twice a month on a Monday, 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. I like to bring authors into my home, and we talk about books, we talk about writing, life as an author, whatever comes to mind. Before I introduce you to my guests, I'm going to do my usual 1-minute shameless plug. This is Jill, and this is coming out tomorrow. It is on pre-order right now for a couple more hours for the special price of $1.99. After midnight Eastern time, it will go to the regular price. If you pre-order it, you will get a magnet and a bookmark. Just message me a screenshot of your order, and I'll be shipping those out next week. So that is my shameless plug. Jill goes live tomorrow. It's book 4 in the Sabella series. I'm super excited, and I'm working on book 5, which will be the last book, I hope. And today, or tonight, my guest this evening is Soraya. Did I get it right?
You did get it right, yes.
Soraya Lane, all the way from New Zealand.
Yes.
How are you this evening?
I'm so good. And can I just say that cover is beautiful, and I think Jill looks like a very interesting lady.
Oh, she was fun to write. She really was fun to write. But thank you so much. Thank you. I am super excited to talk to you. We have a lot of people joining us. We'll say hello in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Before we went live, you mentioned that you are having a storm outside.
We are. So here in New Zealand, we're in the middle of winter. So while you're all basking in the sunshine in summer, we're in winter here. So we've actually had a huge storm throughout the whole country of New Zealand. So it's not too bad here now, but it was the kind of storm that keeps you awake at night. So we've had a lot of wind and a lot of rain and a lot of snow in other parts of the country as well.
Oh, wow. So we are crossing our fingers that the internet behaves.
Yes.
Me too, but mainly for you, that we can get through the hour where there's no interruptions. Before we get started about they look fabulous. Every single one of your books looks fabulous.
Oh, thank you.
We'll talk about it. I love your covers. I have not read any of your books yet, but every single one of them are on my to-read list. I am a super historian buff when it comes to historical fiction. Before we get into your books, tell us a little about yourself. I know you're in New Zealand.
Yes.
Okay, you got to tell me first, what time is it and what date is it?
Right. Okay. So I'm in the future. So it is 12 o'clock midday here on Tuesday, the 3rd of August. So okay. I'm one day ahead of you all. So yeah, it's lunchtime here. And can I just say, I'm so happy to see so many people here. It's incredible how many comments we've got popping up. So thank you everyone for joining us. Yeah. But no, so here in New Zealand, yeah, middle of winter, midday on a Tuesday. And yeah, it's a pretty special place to live. So although we're in bad weather at the moment, yeah, it's a great country to be in.
Oh, it sounds fantastic. How far are you from Australia?
So we are, depending on where in Australia you fly to, we're normally within a sort of 4-hour flight of most of the cities we would travel to in Australia. But some of the further away places are a bit longer to travel to. So we are pretty close. They're our close cousins, we call Australia.
Yeah, I figured. Now, do you have the same dialogue as Australia? Because, like, I'm from England originally.
Yes.
And there's a few common words that the Australian, I mean, like, do you say Cuppa A Natter for
So there's a lot of words that Australians would use that we wouldn't use, and we definitely have very different accents. So to us, if we heard an Australian, we would, make, in a nice way, make fun of their accent, and they would do the same thing to us. So it is quite a different accent, and there are some words that are very Kiwi, New Zealand, and some words that are very Australian.
Okay, yeah. I like that, Kiwi.
Kiwi, yeah.
Kiwi. Okay, I want to say hello to a few people just to let them know that we do know you're here. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you have questions for Soraya,
yes,
yeah, I got to think. I love your name; it's so pretty. Go ahead and pop them in the comments, and I will try and get to them. And if you see a question, Soraya, that I've skipped or did not see, bring it to my attention, and we'll get to it. But we have Raina here, Karen, Virgie. Are you in my group? All these people are in my group. Leisha, Beth Wazzle, Darlene, they're all saying hello.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
Oh, Karen even likes my accent, which is
Yay!
amazing. I think it's terrible.
I think it's brilliant. I do. Hold on. B is here. Donna Dobbs is here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Lisha, I see a few Facebook users, that means you're in my group, which is private. If you go to the top of the video, there's a blue link. If you click on that, StreamYard will show me your name. If you're on my author page, which is public, I can see your name. It's just because you're in a private group. So, Soraya, let's talk books. You just had a book come out recently. I think your latest book, if I'm correct, is The Secrets We Left Behind.
Yes, so I'll hold that up for everyone to see. So that's my lovely cover for The Secrets We Left Behind.
Beautiful. Do you have a say in your covers?
Oh, look, I get a small say. I must say, so I'm published by Amazon Publishing through their Lake Union imprint.
Okay.
And they are really good at asking for feedback and saying that they definitely make the final call. But they do normally send me a few different cover models to choose from, and just to make sure that the model they're looking at does, or the image they're looking at does fit the story, which I do really appreciate. We've actually just gone through a round of cover art, looking at 3 different options for my next book, which comes out in January. And I've actually got a new editor at the moment because my usual long-term editor is on maternity leave. And this new editor was very encouraging, wanting my opinion, which was lovely. So there were 3 options, and both my agent, myself, and my new editor, we all picked the same one that we liked the best. So that was a very painless process. But no, it is. I do get some say. I'm quite strong on. I really like the white, the larger white font. I think it's nice. You know, when you're looking on Amazon, looking at the smaller Kindle covers, it is really nice to be able to read, I think, the title.
And it does make it pop too. And it does make it pop. What I like about your books, number one, like I said, I'm a history buff. I love historical fiction. I love true to life stories. I love World War II and I stories. You cover all of that.
Yeah, I do cover quite a bit of that. Yeah, except World War I. I'm stuck. Do you know, I wrote my first World War II novel, and I swore that I would never write one again because it was so hard and the research was so difficult, and it took me such a long time to write. And then somehow it became my best-selling book. So then I had to stick with it.
What I love is that your stories about the women of war. You give a voice and recognition to the women of war, which we don't hear about too often.
Oh, it's so true. And I hear a lot of my readers say that some of them haven't read a lot of historical fiction. Other readers have, they devour it. They read so much. But a lot of the women I'm hearing from are saying that they wish they'd heard these stories about these incredible women during World War II when they were at school, because so much of history that we learn at school or, wherever we're doing our study is focused on the men's story, the men's perspective. Yeah. And I just think it is really important for us as women to know what happened in the past and what other women went through. A really good example is actually with even my book, The Spitfire Girls, which was about female pilots. And so many people had no idea that women were in those roles. And I think it's really, so it's just, I love being able to tell a fictional story, but at the same time, include something historically accurate that sort of is also a way of learning a little bit about the past whilst enjoying historical fiction.
Right. Yeah. The one that got my attention right away, and it's because I'm fascinated by the stories, is the women of Pearl Harbor.
Oh yes, yeah, got that somewhere behind me.
You have that somewhere. The cover is gorgeous.
Yeah, that's that one there.
That one just.
I love this story.
Yeah. And I watched Tora so many times. I don't like the Hollywood Pearl Harbor story. I mean, I get it. It's Hollywood, love story, blah, 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 blah. But the history behind it, and on my bucket list is to go to the memorial in Hawaii. Yeah. Do you travel for your research?
No, look, I don't travel a lot, and I'm like you. I would really love to go there. And other people that I'm, close friends with have been there, and family members, and they've said it's so, so special. But no, I don't get to do a lot of travel. New Zealand is so far on the other side of the world. It's a huge flight away. But in saying that, I think just with the pandemic and everything that's happened, suddenly not having that option of being able to travel has made me realize that, you know, when the world opens up again, which I hope it does in the near future, that I will be able to travel and see more of these places that I write about, because it would be really special to do so.
And your stories, are they based on actual historians? I mean, people from World War II, actual figures from World War II?
Yes, some of them are and some of them aren't. There's always an element of it being based on maybe not even one person, but a couple of different women that I've read about and trying to tell part of their stories. Certainly in my previous novel, The Last Correspondent, that was about female war correspondents, and that was absolutely based on very much real figures from the past. In The Secrets We Left Behind, it was more a combination of, you know, different women I'd read about and wanting to tell parts of their stories. There was one story I read about during the evacuation of Dunkirk in France, which is what The Secrets We Left Behind, that's where the novel is set. And I read about this incredible nurse who was so determined to save a number of her patients who were unable to walk and join the evacuation, that she piled them all inside an ambulance and decided to drive it herself. And as she was driving, these German soldiers stepped out, and then she realized that they were actually pretty terrifying SS officers, and demanded her to get out. And she was right there at her window, was this terrifying officer with a dagger in his hand and a pistol. And he said something to her about getting out, and she said, "You bastard," slapped him across the face. And he stabbed her in the thigh, and she put her foot on the accelerator and drove off. And you know, she was just so fearless. And she got to the beach for the evacuation in France, and there were some other soldiers there who saw her, and she collapsed, and they got her to safety. But, you know, she just risked everything to save those patients of hers in the ambulance. And so, you know, little things like that. It might not be that the entire story is built around, you know, that particular woman, but I do try and make sure that some of those elements of their stories do find their way into my novels.
Yeah, that takes courage right there. It really
absolutely
does. You know, and if it wasn't for you, we would never have known about that.
Yeah, so there are lovely stories. And also in my novel that came out last year, The Last Correspondent, I didn't know before I started researching that it was the only war correspondent that made it to the beaches in Normandy to see the invasion was actually a female correspondent, and she had smuggled her way on a hospital ship, hidden in one of the bar restrooms, and came out when they were, you know, getting close to the beach. And so all the male correspondents had their binoculars, and they were back, you know, further back in the ships, and she actually was right there and saw the landings of Normandy. So there are just, every time I think, oh, maybe I'll move on to another time period, you know, I read about something incredible like that, and I think, here we go again. Yeah.
World War II, I think you've got a career for life with World War II.
I think so.
I think so, and I can't wait. I mean, my problem is, I'm sure you too, I just don't have enough hours in the day, because like you, I'm an author, and it's like, do I write or do I read?
Yes.
And it's a balancing act. And I really wish I have more hours in the day, because I love to read, but I don't read as much as I'd like to.
I know. And I do find that's I often say it's one of the hardest parts of our job, I think, as writers, is that we often become writers because we love reading so much. But then once we have the pressure of deadlines and the stories that we're writing, we suddenly don't have that time to read like we used to. And I do struggle with that. That's something I find really hard.
Yeah, it's tough, but I will read your books, definitely. They are on I can't wait to read them.
But you know, I've got a pile of books on my desk beside my bed, and you just think there's so many good books I want to read. So I'm an avid buyer of books. I just don't get to read as many as I would.
And then it'll take me more than a month to read a book, even if it's so good.
I know.
This limited window to read. Okay, I'll read a chapter now, and then a week goes by. Okay, I'll read another chapter. And it's just so frustrating. It really is. I have a couple of questions for you that I do want to slow down. And I have a couple questions for you too. Here's one. What drew you to write the historical genre? That's from Bree.
I think that thank you for all the questions too. It's fantastic. But I think in terms of the historical genre, I had always loved reading it. And I'm an only child. And I think in a way, you know, my mother was a huge reader. And I think I was lucky that, you know, probably being treated as a, you know, probably older than my years, being an only child and surrounded by adults all the time. And so I started reading at a really young age, reading sort of more advanced stories. And I fell in love with historical novels because my mum was reading them. And so that sort of started that love affair with historical stories, but I didn't have the confidence to actually start writing those novels for some time. So my career started writing contemporary romance, which I still absolutely adore. And I love those books. And then I actually went back to university. I studied law and I graduated and thought, I don't really want to be a lawyer. But I went back and did my master's in creative writing. So I did an MFA and I challenged myself to write an historical novel, my first World War II novel, as my thesis. So it took 2 years to write that novel, which was really hard. And I was a fast writer, and with my contemporary works, I was writing so much faster, but the research really slowed me down. And so I wrote that first novel and self-published it and thought I'd just see how it went. And I was very fortunate that it did very well, and it sort of kickstarted a whole new part of my career, really, writing historical fiction. But I think novels like The Bronze Horseman by Paulina Simons and just that was probably my standout historical novel that I loved. And but it took me a long time to believe that I was capable of writing, that kind of story, sort of set in the past. And I think my confidence is still knocked sometimes. I still think, oh gosh, they're such big stories, and I want to do them justice. And so I do have that sort of, I do get nervous with a lot of my stories, but it's something I'm so passionate about, telling those stories.
I can tell, and the reviews you're getting are fantastic.
Yeah, it has been great.
And a lot of reviews. I mean, like you said, you love reading historical fiction. I love reading it, but to write it scares the heck out of me.
And I think with contemporary romance, I felt just inside that I had that ability to write it. I loved it. I'd read it for so many years. I mean, I'd read historical for some time as well, but I feel that contemporary romance came very naturally to me. And I feel my heroines were, a similar age to me. I felt that I knew, where they were going and what they were doing and how they were feeling. Whereas to go into historical fiction, it was a real challenge, and it still is. But it's something that I'm very committed to, telling those stories.
How long does it take to research? I mean, everything has to be precise for that time era. The clothing, the language, everything. Yeah.
And one little thing I'll get, you just think, if you get one little thing, it's awful. And there is often, one tiny thing. I actually had something recently that my editor pulled me up on at the copy, which might have been line edit stage. And we decided to change. There was a black character in the story, and they decided to call him an African-American soldier. And that was really difficult because obviously that is not correct for the time period. But our decision was that we didn't want to, given what was happening in the world at the time, we didn't want to contribute to that, and we wanted to be respectful. And so instead of calling him the name that he would have been called, and I had a lot of nasty tweets and a couple of messages about that. And that was a really tricky one because on the one hand, you're trying to say, actually, look, we're just going to, it's only one reference and we're going to say that so that we're not being, we're not causing any problems or inflammatory, reactions to using a certain word from the past. But I do understand that it wasn't historically accurate. But there was a few people who weren't happy with me about that. And ultimately it was my editor's decision. So that is a hard, things like that can be difficult.
Yeah, that's what scares me about. I've never tried. I don't think I ever could. My dad, he was an author too.
Oh, and right.
He basically wrote science fiction, but there's one book he wrote called The Prophecies Operation. And it involved World War II. So he did a lot of research for the book, but the basis of the book was how the world would be today if Hitler had won the war.
Oh, yes.
And it really makes you think, like, whoa. Yeah. So I understand where, the research comes, and that popped into my head when, discussing the research.
Yes.
But that would scare me. I mean,
I actually pitched a story idea to my editor, to my agent about, about that kind of story, about if Hitler had won the war. And she just said to me, no, we're not going there. Like, no. You will get, some people will love it and some people will hate you.
Some people, it did actually win 3 awards.
Wow.
And it was brilliant, really. I'm pitching for my dad now. But let's get some more questions about the research. So how long do you spend? I mean, I'm sure it varies from book to book, but researching, you have to research before you put pen to paper.
Absolutely. And normally what happens is that I do a significant amount of research before I pitch a story idea to my editor. So at the moment, I've just actually pitched 3 new stories to my editor. And so but that was a months long, work in progress, just getting to that point. And so by the time I've given her the idea, which is normally, probably about anywhere between 5 to 12 page outline or proposal with the background history and what the story is and everything, I know I've done enough research that there's enough there to write a full story. So I have done quite a bit, early on. But the research, I find it easier and more manageable now because I have been writing World War II for some time. So The Secrets We Left Behind was my 7th historical novel. And because they've all been set during World War II, I feel that I have a really good knowledge of the war itself. So although I have to do a really significant amount of research on the particular aspect that I'm writing about, at least now I do have that, I know what they were wearing, what they were eating, what London looked like, what parts of Europe, what was happening. So I do feel that I have a much broader knowledge now to start with. Whereas for my first 2 novels, it was just so daunting. It was, it was really hard.
I can believe it. Hold on 1 second. I was going to ask you a question and it just went away. What time of day do you write most of the time?
Oh, what time of day? Okay, so now I've actually got quite a good answer because my children are both at school. So I can just say that, I send them to school and I start writing at 9 o'clock and I have the whole school day pretty much to write. A few years ago, I was juggling another job and preschoolers and, it was so much more difficult. So I was writing, I would have had a very different answer and I was just writing whenever I could. I'm still doing a significant number of hours every day, but now I do have a much more set schedule. So it's really lovely. And I'm trying not to work too much on the weekends anymore. So I can pretty much work a full-time week between Monday to Friday. If I'm on deadline or there's, edits come back that are urgent, I will always, work nights or weekends. But when I'm just in my writing the draft stage, I generally can I aim for about 10,000 words a week. I normally do 2,000 a day. So I'm in that drafting mode. So so that's sort of if I get my 10,000 words done by a Friday afternoon, I can tick that box and have the weekend off.
My goal is 1,000, but I'd like to get to the 2,000 a day. Yeah. But I'm happy if I reach 1,000, and if I go beyond, hey, it's a good day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and someone else asked before, I'm just what snacks I eat while I'm working. I can't find the question now, so I'm not sure who asked it, but I'm a big fan of chocolate, so cups of tea and chocolate to snack on.
Oh, you're a tea drinker.
Here we go. That was Chelsea asking that. So.
You're a tea drinker too.
I am a tea drinker. Sometimes I actually had a coffee this morning because I was awake so much in the night with this awful weather, and so I did have a coffee this morning. But normally I'm black tea is my drink of choice.
I say I gotta put milk and sugar in mine.
I'm sugar as well. Black tea with sugar, but no.
I gotta have milk in mine. My question. I just remembered my question. All of your books are standalones, correct?
Yes, they are. Yeah, on my the first 4 I think were linked on Amazon as the Soraya Lane historical collection or something like that. But there's no link. They're all very much about strong women during World War II, but no, they can be read in any order and they're very much standalone stories.
And they're all standalone, no cliffhangers, nothing. Do you think you'll ever write a series or you think you'll just stick
I have been wanting to write a series for such a long time, but I haven't come up with a World War II series, but I actually have a little idea that's going at the moment for a series, something completely different, but it's not far advanced enough in my brain or in my notebook yet to talk about, but hopefully one day there'll be a series.
I hope so. Here we go. Here's another one from B. Do you come up with the titles before or after you write?
Great question. So I normally have a title when I pitch my story idea to my editor, just because I can't stand just sending the outline off without having a title. But it doesn't mean that title sticks. There's every now and again my title will be the eventual title on the cover, but a lot of the time it's not, and it's. Yeah, I just like having a title for me to work from. I don't mind changing it. I tend to think that the marketing people at Amazon probably know better than me. So if they come up with a better title, it's fine. Every now and again, though, they surprise me and decide that they like my title. But it's not. It's often out of my control.
Oh, good. Yeah, the book I'm writing now, the 5th book to the series I'm writing, I still don't have a title for it.
Don't you?
And I'm waiting for it to come to me. I'm halfway through this book. It's like, come on, I'm waiting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe I'll just put a question mark and publish it. Here's a question from Karen. How do you come up with the names in your books? These are good
Oh,
questions.
this is so hard. Coming up with names. And I think the more we write, the harder it is. You'll probably find this because we've used so many names already. So
I know. Yeah, I
really
find myself on a baby name site.
Yes, and that's what I do. And I'll look up, pretty names in France, or popular names from 1942 or something like that. So I generally do look through baby name websites because it is just so tough, and I actually find surnames. So the last names are the hardest I find now because I find them harder to find. Whereas names for my heroines, I find there's so many pretty female names that I can find in searching those baby websites. Male names are harder. I seem to have a handful of sort of strong male names that I like, and I'm always drawn back to those. Then I've got to go and find something different, so it's not the same as another novel.
And you also have to be careful with your books because certain names weren't around.
Exactly.
Yes. I mean, there's so many of these, I call them crazy names, but there's so many names that they wouldn't even think of back in World War II. So you really have to go deeper.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why I normally do double check those sort of names from 1942 or 35 or something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you have family, whether it's or passed on, that served in services?
Yes, I do. So both my grandfathers, my father's father was actually a much older man, and so he actually served in World War One. And my mother's father, he served in World War Two, and I did lose a number of great uncles to World War Two as well. So New Zealand we lost a lot of men during World War Two, and we fought very closely with the Allies, with our Australian and American and English brothers in arms. So there's a real connection there as well for me and for my own country as well. Yeah.
Does your family read your books?
Yes, well, my dad has just finally read one of my books. My mum just loves them. She's the first to receive one. The minute I get that big box of books land on the doorstep, she gets the first copy. So she's a huge reader, and I can really trust her. If she says to me, I love this book, I know she's actually telling me the truth, because she would tell me if she didn't like it. So it is. Yeah, she's my biggest reader. Yeah.
And how old are you? How old are your children?
So I have two boys. So I've got a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old. So it's they're really nice ages, actually. I have to say, it's really lovely. Yeah.
And they like the fact that mom's an author?
Yeah, they do. It's funny though, because I also have a children's series out here in New Zealand, and it's also in Australia. And so a lot of the girls, especially my 10-year-old son, a lot of his friends, girls in his class, do read my stories. And so I see his cheeks get a bit pink. I see him get embarrassed when they're like, oh, there's your mum, she's the author. And they'll come and talk to me, and he looks at me like, why would they want to talk to you? So it's really funny. And we have book week coming up here. I don't know whether you have that in America, and the kids everywhere, but the children dress up as their favorite book character. And it's a really big sort of week at school where they, have authors.
Great idea. No, I don't think we do. If I do, let me know, readers, but I've never heard of it.
So we normally have every week in New Zealand, every year in New Zealand, we have a week which is called Book Week, and it's a different week for every school.
Every week?
Every year there's 1 week of the year. 1 week of the year, sorry. And so authors will come and visit, and the school libraries have, lots of books on display, and there'll be a parade at the end of the week, and each child is encouraged to come as their favorite character from a story. So it's always very sweet, when I see the girls at my son's school dressing up as one of my characters from one of my children's
brilliant.
books.
They might. I mean, I don't have any kids in school anymore, so I'm kind of out of touch with that. Do all the schools do it, or it's just the school?
They all do. No, they all do.
Yeah. And it's like National Book Week, I guess you would call it.
It depends. Some schools, like I just went and talked to a school actually maybe 4 weeks ago, and they had a different week than my son's school, which is coming up soon. So I think it's normally in our sort of during winter sometime, but it just whenever it suits the school.
Do you, with your genre, do you visit a lot of schools and talk about it?
Well, no, I don't with these books, but with the children's series I wrote, it's a 6-book series, and that came out maybe 4 years ago. So I did talk to a lot of schools when I wrote that. But no, I don't tend to do too many talks. Mainly, I mean, most of my audience really is either in America or in England. So generally it's video interviews like this, really.
Right. Get you out there. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see what other questions we have.
Excuse me.
I'm not sure if we answered it. We might have answered part of this. It's from Virgie. How long does it take you to write a book?
Oh, good question. It depends. I have my weekly word count that I try and really stick to, which is 10,000 words. And my books are generally between 85 to 100,000 words. My first draft normally comes in around 85,000. So I suppose that's sort of up to 10 weeks of solid writing. But there is a lot of time before that doing the research, and then there's a lot of time editing afterwards. So it is, I generally think it's probably a 4-month writing process by the time I actually have the finished product.
That's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. And then I think, though, I do have a very detailed outline when I start writing. So every chapter is mapped out. So I generally start with around 2 paragraphs per chapter. So if I'm looking at 40 chapters, I have quite a detailed outline to start with. I didn't used to write like that. And with my contemporary stories, I would just sit down and write. And I love not having a plan. Yeah, and I love that. And I'll often start writing a new contemporary story, and I don't often finish them now, but just to feel like that and have that lovely feeling of just being able to sit and write. But with the historical stories, I generally have 3 main characters, sometimes 4. And then I have their own individual story arcs and how, those characters relate to one another. And then I'll have, what's happening in history. So my whole external sort of plot. And so it's just too hard. You just have to plan that out. It's very hard to write that without having an outline. So, yeah. And then generally after that 4-month writing process, my editor will read it. And we normally have a very intense sort of 4 to 6 week editing process after that. And it normally always comes with quite big rewrites in certain parts to make different areas stronger. So it's a very intense editing process after that as well.
Wow. Do you have a favorite step for writing? Is there a favorite part?
The start. The start, when it seems easy and it's all fresh and wonderful, and then the middle is always so hard. And then I often actually, if I get a little bit stuck with my writing, I'll normally jump to the end and I write the beautiful ending and the epilogue, and I have that lovely ending all done. Then I go back to the tricky middle part again. Yeah, so I just
normally know. I'm sorry. Do you normally know how the book is going to end before you start writing it?
Definitely. I can often see my ending as clearly as I can see my beginning, but often it's the middle I find hard. So I will,
Has it ever changed? I mean,
it has changed, because I will sometimes my editor, actually quite often, she will say to me, I want a different epilogue, I want to see more of this, or I want, and I'm actually okay doing that. It breaks my heart a little bit, but often I think, no, she's right. Like, I've written the epilogue that I wanted to know what happened to them, but she'll often say, I think we need to go deeper, or we need more, or can we bring it forward or back, so I will often end up rewriting the ending or the epilogue. But that's just one of those things. And often the story has changed during edits, slightly as well. So that needs to be reflected in the ending. Yeah. And
your editor, she's been with you through all your books?
Yeah. So I've had my same editor since, I think, 2014.
Wow.
Yeah, so we've done a lot of work together, and this is her second maternity leave. So I've been without her for about 9 months. Quite a few years ago, and then she's just gone on leave again now. So I've got someone new that I'm working with, which is always really scary. But it's been fine. And I think there was enough of a transition period there where they were working, my 2 editors were working together, that it has actually ended up being quite an easy process. So it's been good. Yeah.
That's great. And the cover designer too is the same one for all the books?
I think so. I actually don't know the person's name.
Amazon.
Yeah, it's at Amazon, and I have the same. So my editor that I'm working with at Amazon, I also have another editor who does the structural edits with me and with her. So there's I've got my editor who's overseeing it all, and then I've got another editor that I've worked with actually for probably since 2014, and she's a freelance editor that they work with as well. So every time I sign a new contract, I always say I have to have Sophie. She's she's non-negotiable, and they always get her to work on my books with me. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. Let's see some of your more. You have some more books next to you, right?
Oh yes. So I've got
what else? Some more you covered, and then I'm going to read the description from your latest book, but. Your covers are so pretty.
I do have some other lovely covers. This is actually one. Oh, hang on. Which one have I got here? This is one of my favorites, actually. Funnily enough, though, the red cover doesn't sell as well as the blue covers always sell better. So, really? Although it's one of my favorites, the blue ones are often the better ones. Yeah. I think people
I
like
had
blue.
no idea that
Yeah.
girls flew. I had no idea.
So yeah, that's some of my favorites. So yeah, these two came out actually in the same year, and
They're
those
gorgeous.
everyone seems to love the blue. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they just pop. They really
Yeah,
do.
thank you.
They
I
really
always
do.
say I've been blessed by the cover gods. It's always
You have. Let's take a minute and I will read the description that's on Amazon for the blurb for your latest book, which is The Secrets We Left Behind. And that one came out. When did it come out?
that one came out about 2 months ago. Yeah.
Oh, it's like super new.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. And it's available worldwide.
Yes,
And
it is.
I know it's on Kindle, it's on paperback. Is it on
Yes.
audio?
It is on audio as well. Yeah. So only on ebook format through Amazon. So on Kindle,
Right.
and then it's on Audible audio through Audible or Amazon, and also on paperback everywhere. Yeah.
And do you have that one next to you one more time? That's the one I'm
Yes,
going to
I do. Yeah.
Yes?
So that's what we're
Yeah,
talking
that
about.
one.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Secrets We Left Behind.
This is the description to this book. Okay, here we go. Occupied France, 1940, when the staff at a field hospital draw straws to find out who would join the evacuation from Dunkirk, Nurse Kate is left behind. But when the Nazis arrive to claim prisoners of war, she takes her chance and flees into the night, taking one patient with her. 50 miles away, the surrendering soldiers of the Royal Norfolk Regiment are shot, dead by the advancing Germans. Beneath the pile of bodies, 2 men survive, crawling to the safety of a nearby farmhouse. When Sisters Elise and Adelaide risk their lives to take them in, when Kate too arrives at the door with her injured soldier, the pressure mounts. The sisters are risking everything to keep their visitors safe, but with the Nazis coming even closer and relationships in the farmhouse intensifying, they must all question the sacrifices they are willing to make for the lives of others. How far would they go for family, friendship, and love? Absolutely love that.
Thank you.
Sounds really good.
Yeah. And so as you'll see that as you would have heard, the book is set in Dunkirk during the evacuation of France during that period. And I'm not sure whether we might have some viewers here who have seen the film Dunkirk, the wonderful movie called Dunkirk, which was absolutely amazing. But I loved it. But as soon as I finished watching it, I turned to my husband and said, there were no women in that film. You know, where were they? There must have been women there. And it was pretty much an exclusively male cast. And although I love the story and I think it was such a special, visually, and what they did with that film was amazing. It gave me the idea that really someone had to tell the story about, about the women's story. Yeah, from their perspective. And the minute I started researching it, I realized that there were most definitely women there. And that's how the story really started. Yeah.
I haven't watched the movie, but I'm going to now.
Yeah, it's very good. It's quite different, but it's very good. Yeah.
I'm definitely going to watch it. Let me see. I saw a couple of questions here. Here we go. Right here. What is the most unique piece of history that you came across? And that's a great question.
Oh, that is a really good question. I think I could sit here and talk for hours about all the pieces of history. I think recently one of the most incredible things was the wee story I told before, the story about the nurse who, was stabbed in the leg with a dagger and
Mm-hmm.
Still kept driving. There's lots of little things about women that really surprised me. Another thing that I loved was when I was researching my novel, The Spitfire Girls, which was about the female pilots during World War II, was that the head of the aviation division for women in England, she fought for equal pay. She went to her superiors and said, there are men doing the same role as us and we're being paid, I think it was 40% less, and that's not acceptable to me. And she demanded pay parity and she got it instantly.
Wow.
And so I think, there are things like that I find so interesting that was happening in, I think that was 1944. And we have women battling the same thing today and asking the same questions and wanting, pay parity now.
Yeah.
And to think that someone was brave enough in 1944 to go to their superior and say, I want to be paid the same amount as my male counterparts. And I want that for all the women who are, serving beneath me. I found that really, really amazing. And actually, there's another piece of history I just came across when I was pitching some new ideas to my editor. And it was about, once again, a woman from England. And she wanted to drive an ambulance, but she did drive an ambulance, but she wanted to drive her ambulance on the front line. She wanted to be taking soldiers right from the front line and taking them to safety. And she actually, she had some of her officers surrender her to the Free French in France. And she was told that she was no longer under any protection. And if she went there, she was out on her own, basically. And she signed the papers, and she was basically signed over to them. And I just thought, for a woman to be so brave and so determined to be that close to the action, that she, goes to another country and is happy to be in that role and be in such, deep danger, grave danger. I just find, little pieces of information from history like that really fascinating.
Yeah, and you could probably write a whole book just from
absolutely, just from that little thing. I know. And that's what happens, is that I, when I'm writing a story, I come across these little bits of research, because I do end up doing a small amount of research every day. There is never a day where I'm, writing a story where I don't have to stop writing and go and, cross-reference something. And I'll suddenly find out, I'll read something like that and, jot that idea down in my notebook, and suddenly that becomes a whole nother story. And, there are so many cases where that happens.
With your characters, the ones that are based, which I guess most of them are based on true real life people. Yes. Do you ever research the living family?
Look, I do if I can, and there are some cases where there has been, a biography written, or sometimes it's easier to find than other times. My next story that's coming out in January is called Under a Sky of Memories, and that's about American nurses who end up. Their plane crash lands in Albania, and there was a lot of information about the real life nurses who survived that crash and their families, and that sort of information. So there are some cases where it's easier to find that out, and other times where it's a bit more challenging.
I can believe it. Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Oh, yeah. Grace is here. Grace is my cousin in England.
Oh.
So Grace is her mom's name. That's in her mom's memory. That's my Auntie Grace.
Oh, wow.
Linda. But that's my cousin in England. Hi, Grace.
Grace is actually one of my favorite names. I would love to use that more in my stories. I've got a very special character called Grace. Yeah.
Oh, I'm not even sure what time it is in England. They're 8 hours ahead of us. So
actually, I should know that. So I would have thought it would be very, very early in the morning there.
It's like 2 o'clock in the morning.
2 in the morning, yeah.
Well, she's up just to see you, Soraya.
Oh, wow. And I see that we've got, is it Laurie here has asked, how do I like to celebrate a new release?
Okay, that's fine. I don't see it, but go ahead. What answer?
A great question. Now, that's such a good question, because I've decided to have a book cake every time I have a new book come out. So I often do that. And so we've got a cake company nearby, a bakery that will do the cake for me, and they have my cover on there. And so it's actually made my boys get very excited when I have a new book out now, because they know there's a cake coming.
Come on, Mom, hurry up, write that book. We want cake.
But I tell you what, trying to get photos taken of the cake before they eat it is quite challenging. So it's that they just love it. And I always do a beautiful chocolate cake with my cover. It's like a book. They do it so beautifully. And I do candles, and my husband and I will normally have champagne. Often we do it with my parents. So my parents are very supportive.
I did it for my debut novel. My daughter-in-law's mother made me a cake with the cover on it for my debut.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I haven't done one since, but they come out beautiful.
Yeah, they do. It's gorgeous. And I've only done 2 of them so far, but now I feel that I've made that tradition. I have to keep going. So I have a very expensive cake to pay for every time.
Yeah, let the kids down.
No, I thought next time I might try and do cupcakes. I have seen that with the tiny little covers on the cupcakes, but I think we'll just stick with the big cake. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. I'm not sure who this is. She's asking, do you keep a journal?
No, look, I did when I was younger, but I don't keep a journal now. I actually would love to, and I probably need to go back to doing that, because I love looking back. When my children were younger, I did write a lot down. I actually started writing a journal for each child and doing it, like an entry for them to read about themselves when they were little. And that was really special looking back. But, you end up being so tired by the time the second child comes along, you keep up with it for a while.
I know.
It's quite challenging. But I do have a notebook with me at all times, and one on my desk, quite a big book notebook that I write a lot of ideas in, and stories I want to write. So I do write something down every day, but it's more creative about what I want to write, or a character or story ideas, as opposed to a journal that's personal to me.
Okay. Here's an
Yeah.
interesting question. I'm not sure who it is. We've got a Facebook user.
Yeah.
Why do you think the color of the cover is important?
Look, I wish I knew. Like I was saying before,
That
you
would
know,
be my answer.
the red cover. I mean, I just adore this cover. It's one of my
I do
favorites.
too.
But for some reason, a lot of my readers, and I'd say this is probably one of my favorite books I've written, and it didn't sell quite as well as the others that came before and after it. And I presume it could have been the cover. It's very much the same topic, but it didn't do quite as well. And I feel that it's one of my strongest stories. So it's quite interesting. The reviews are exactly the same, same star average. My readers all said the same things about the story, but it's something about the red. And yeah, my blue covers always sell best. So we've got a blue one coming out next.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite character from all your books? I mean, that's probably a hard one to choose.
It is really hard. I normally have so in most of my stories, I have three main female characters, and I normally have one of those women in each story is often I feel closest to. It's not so much that she's a favorite, but maybe I feel like she's either most similar to me or perhaps how I hope that I would have behaved in that time period. There's always someone I feel like I connect with, but often it might change. The character that I find, really exciting before I start writing the book may not be my favorite at the end, because I do also find I really enjoy seeing a character that may be a little bit more shy or, withdrawn, and seeing their growth through the story and the character they end up being can often actually, make them my favorite. So it is really tricky, actually, trying to pick a favorite.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to see. I've been asked that, and I'm like, I can't pick just one. I really can't.
Yeah.
Okay, you're a very busy lady with your research and your writing. When you're not writing, what other hobbies do you have? Or reading? You can't say reading.
I can't say reading. Look, before I had children, I would have had much more to say. But yes, between writing and being a mother and all those things that come with it, I'm also mum to a lot of fur babies. So we have we're on a 12-acre, very what we'd call a small farm here, or a lifestyle block.
Nice.
So it's we've got 5 horses and 2 dogs and 2 cats and 2 sheep. So we have a few animals to keep us company. So it's pretty busy just dealing with all of them. But I do, like, before I had children, I used to horse ride a lot. So I was, I spend a lot of time just enjoying being out on horseback. And my children are loving to ski as well. And I haven't started snow skiing yet. So at some point I'm going to have to try. But no, generally I love taking a break from writing and taking my dogs for a nice long hike, going for a big walk. We've got some beautiful places around here that I can take them off leash, through most of the walk, so they can run and swim and have lots of fun. So that's my favorite thing, really, is just being outside and being in nature.
Are you near water, like a lake or the ocean?
We're not here where we are, but we love going on holidays sort of, within a 4-hour drive. So we have a beautiful ocean where we can go to, a lovely sort of beach area. But no, we are close, like where I take the dogs, about a 15-20 minute drive. We've got lovely big stretches of river where they can swim. Nice. And it is really nice. Yeah.
Excellent. Do you kayak?
No, I don't kayak.
Love kayaking. That's one of my things.
I can imagine that I've got one huge, very large dog and one very tiny, small dog. And I can imagine my large dog would come along with me and probably jump in and send me out of the boat.
I've never taken I have a Jack Russell and I have a Brittany.
Oh,
I've never taken them on the kayak. They're just so hyper.
Yeah, I've got a Jack Russell too. We've got a wee rough coat one. So we've got a scruffy looking rough coat one. Yeah.
Okay, I have a Parson long-legged.
Oh, wow.
She's my second Jack. You think I'd learn from the first?
Yes, well, actually, we've got a pointer as well, a German short-haired pointer, and they are very high energy. And then somehow we decided to get a Jack Russell as well. So we have big high energy and little high energy. So,
well, the other one, there's a Brittany, and she's high energy too. She's a bird.
I'm sure.
But the last Jack Russell I had lived till 19.
Oh my goodness!
And this one I have now, Ellie, she's 13, but you think she's 2.
Yeah, they don't calm down.
Yeah, how old is yours?
So mine just turned 1 in February, so he's very young. Yeah, and then our older one, our big dog, so he's a bird dog as well, our pointer, and he is almost 4, and he has not changed. He is still, crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. My husband's a falconer. So so Tess, the Brittany, used to go to work with him. And she would work with the falcons and flush them out of the sage. So she was a brilliant bird dog, but she's had a seizure 3 years ago. So now she's on seizure medications and she can't go to work. So she's retired.
Oh,
so we have pigeons
incredible work though.
Oh yeah, we have 150 pigeons, for falconry training. Tess spends all day counting pigeons. She still thinks she's at work.
So that keeps her busy.
Actually, yeah.
So she thinks she has a job still.
We still think she's at work because we let the pigeons out every day. So they just fly around and they're free. And they're homing pigeons. So they come back at night. They go into the coop. When they're all back in, we lock them up.
Yeah.
For the night, from critters. But Tess will be around the yard pointing to all these pigeons.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Poor baby. But anyway, she's a sweetheart. We love our dogs. But where you live sounds fantastic.
It is. And you're probably the same. It is so nice, knowing the dogs are there and, I find them lovely company in my office or when I'm at home, but they also will come and say to me, come on, we haven't been out walking. And it's really good to get me out of my chair and actually, go and do something with them.
Yeah, I find if I sit down for, want a bite, I have to take my dogs for a walk first.
Yes, absolutely.
Otherwise, they just took my feet. They would just stare at me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find that if we do the big, go for the big walk in the morning or do something, then they're so quiet for the day and they're lovely. But if not, they are just constantly coming into my office and looking at me like, oh, we still haven't done anything today.
No, yeah. The guilt trip. They are just so good at the guilt trip.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I really could talk to you for hours. I'm going to move your books up to the top of my list because
you're very sweet.
Super excited. We do have to wrap this down pretty soon because I want to put this on Instagram too.
Great.
But Instagram, if it goes over an hour, they won't let me upload it. So I'm watching the time closely. We have a few more minutes. I do want to catch in a few more questions and then talk about some giveaways that we're going to be doing. Yay, giveaway time. In fact, while I'm looking for some questions, you can talk about your giveaway.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to give away a paperback edition today of The Secrets We Left Behind. So I'll just show you in case anyone missed it. Now, I am posting. I can't post from New Zealand. We were just talking before the interview. It's incredibly expensive and it's taking months to even get to America or to wherever you are in the world. So I'm going to ship via Book Depository, which means it will get there in a very timely fashion. So it will be an unsigned copy, but it will be a paperback. So we're going to give that away to someone who has been watching the interview today.
There we go.
Tina will choose. Yeah.
I was going to suggest, I'm not sure if you have them, but do you have book plates?
No, I don't actually. I need to look into that because I haven't actually done that, but I've had a few people ask about them.
Yeah, because that's what I do sometimes. If a person buys a book on Amazon, they'll reach out to me and I'll send them a book plate. So
I do need to look into that. That's a great idea.
And they're reasonable too. That's been excellent. Okay, so that is fantastic. And I will pick the winner tonight.
Great.
I will tag you. I probably give it a couple of hours when I'll go through and have. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. It's going so fast I couldn't keep up. But anyway, so I love your giveaway. Thank you so much. But I also do a couple of giveaways on each chat, and the first one is, of course, my cup of tea. I always give away a box of tea bags. This is my go-to tea. It's Yorkshire. Have you ever had this one?
No, I've never seen that one, but I will look for it.
So Walmart. Do you have a Walmart in Australia? Probably not.
Do we have a what? A Walmart? Yes. Well, no, similar, but it's we have what.
That's where I get these, and I do as a gift. But this is my go-to every single day. It's Yorkshire tea. It's really strong, and I always give a box away to one viewer. So someone's going to get a box of these sent to them, and then the other thing I do is I give away a $5 Amazon gift card. The way you get to be in a drawing for that is you go to my my author page on Facebook, and you share this video. And when you share it, tag me so I know you shared it. And one of those tags will get a $5 Amazon gift card. But you have to share the video in order to be in the drawing. And you have to tag me. Otherwise, I won't know you shared it. So those are the giveaways. I will announce them all this evening. See, I've forgotten it. Soraya.
Yeah, you got it.
It has just been such a pleasure to talk to you tonight.
It's been lovely. I've really enjoyed it. And it's lovely talking to you, and also so wonderful to see so many people engaging and leaving comments and watching as well.
I've been excited about this chat for a while. I know you did a takeover in my group a while back.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
If you ever want to do another one, they're always on a Tuesday, and the sign up is in the announcements always.
Okay. Thank you so much.
We have dates all the way through till December. So keep that in mind.
Wonderful.
Anytime. And you got a new book out? Let's do another chat.
Yeah, I've got a new one out January. So definitely then as well.
Let's get you in. I am booked up through March, but beyond that, let's get you in for next year. I'd love it.
Great. Sounds wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'm glad the storm behaved. And
yes.
we didn't lose direction. Thank you, everyone, for being with us. I appreciate it. You guys are awesome. And we will talk to you soon. Good night, everybody.
All right. See you later.
Bye.